What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, February 27th, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, we are recording like 3 hours before my flight, so as soon as this is done, I gotta edit, put it out, and get it all done, and then go grab my luggage and run out the door.
The best thing is you're headed to Florida, as we know,
That is true.
and for those who didn't, now they know. And you're headed to Florida as a Buffalo winner. You know, you don't have to go with the depression that two Florida teams came through and took down Buffalo, because they didn't. So you're going to Buffalo or Florida, and you can wear your Sabres hat proudly and rub it in their face.
That is what the plan is. So if you can follow along with our Florida adventures for one half of this podcast, you can follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Check for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Like we said, I am flying down to Florida to visit my parents. So Friday's show that we just recorded on Saturday is already done. It's loaded up. It's ready to come out on Friday. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled shows on the 6th of March. So, Phil, we got 3 Sabres games to talk about, and they are all victories. Thursday versus Tampa Bay. Both these first 2 games are down in Florida, like you said, and they walked out victorious. They beat Tampa 6-5 in overtime. Zemgus Girgensson, Tage had a hat trick. Quinn and Lyubushkin are the goal scorers. Lyubushkin with the unbelievable, if you had bet on him to score the overtime goal, you would have to be able to retire. It's unbelievable. Comrie, 36 of 41 saves. Shots were 41-23 in favor of the Lightning. Friday versus Florida, won 3-1. Skinner had 2. Tuck had the other. Anderson, 53 of 54 saves. Just unbelievable. Shots were 54-35 in favor of Florida. And Sunday versus Washington, the game that just ended, they won 7-4. Dylan Cousins had his own hat trick. Tage had 1, Skinner had 1, Girgensson had 1, and Hinostroza, who got called up because of the Tuck injury, also chipped in his first of the year. UPL, 26 of 30 saves. Shots were 37-30 in favor of the Sabres, and the record currently sits at 31-23-4. Unbelievable stretch by the Buffalo Sabres here.
Yeah, they really turned it around after that Toronto game. We talked about that third period against Toronto maybe being a little bit of something you could roll into the next game, and they rolled it into 3 games. And we talked about this stretch coming up was going to be absolutely massive for any playoff implications. You had to beat these teams, 2 of which are chasing you in the standings, one of which is just a little bit better, and just all teams you have to win. And anyway, you're at the point where every single win matters, but these are really good teams. And the top 2 here, the 2 Florida teams, the biggest thing to me with those 2 teams is the goaltending for the opposing teams are both top 5 in the entire league, especially Tampa. Yep. It's not like at this point in the season they were rolling out their backup, kind of throwing this game against the Sabres aside, saying, whatever happens, happens. If they score a lot against our backup, it's not a big deal. We've seen that kind of earlier in the season. Oftentimes the opposing teams would throw out their backup against the Sabres, not really considering them much of a competition. But these 2 games, they threw out their starting goaltenders, both of which are top 5 in the entire NHL. And the Sabres still were able to put 6 by in Tampa and 3 in Florida. It was just incredible to see what their offensive production has really been able to do. And even in this last game with the injury to Tuck, they were still able to step up. But that Tampa game, absolutely incredible. 6-5 win in overtime. I don't know what more you could ask for. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think this is a game where Tage Thompson kind of just took over. It's been a few weeks since he had one of these type of games where he just goes, okay, jump on my back, I'm going to carry you. He is just behind McGillney and Martin in terms of hat tricks for a single season. They both had 7. He's currently at 4. He can definitely still crank this up, but I think the biggest thing here is Skinner's also a playmaker now. His pass to Tage Thompson was just unbelievable. That second period, the Sabres took over. 3 goals for them, 1 goal for the Lightning in a matter of 3 minutes and 49 seconds. I remember we were recording, and I'm like, hey, it's 1-1 after 1. And then I turned it off because I was going to watch the game later on in the night. And I'm just getting ding, 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 ding on my phone. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And we're like, oh my God, the Sabres are up 4-2 now. What the heck just happened? But it's a victory that they turned into, and I guess this is a nice transition into the Florida game where they like I said, the Ilya Lyubushkin goal in overtime, shorthanded, first time ever in regulation or in the regular season by a defenseman. or by anybody shorthanded in overtime scoring a goal, and it's Ilya Lyubushkin, who now has 4 total goals in his entire career. But huge win by a team that is in the top 3 in their division that the Sabres are also kind of chasing, but I don't think they're going to be able to catch. But the Florida game, I think, is the more testament win. It's a team that you're battling for a wild card race. You walked into their door, you won. You withstood an onslaught of shots that Anderson just turned away. He was in position for all of them. You walk out the door and get a bit of a buffer against Florida.
Yeah, that's the only negative to that game is, yes, it was 3-1. It was a good win, but it was all Anderson for the most part. I mean, the opportunities, like we said, Florida has a very good goalie as well, also top 5 in the entire league, so you weren't likely to get a ton by them, but at the same time, Anderson played just out of his absolute mind. I mean, 53 saves in a game, no matter who you are, is absolutely incredible. But for Anderson being a backup goalie, kind of a journeyman at this point, and just the age he is, I mean, he just played absolutely incredible. There's just no other way to really put it. But that game in general, a lot of fun, really good game. I mean, it was chippy throughout the game. You could tell both teams are absolutely fighting for a playoff spot, and it was just going to be a tough game. But it was good to see a lot of the kind of secondary scoring. I mean, you mentioned a while ago, as I mentioned, that Skinner really hasn't scored in a long time, and you said that he often goes on runs, and he is absolutely starting one of those runs. I think the last few games he's had goals now and then putting 2 in this one. You can just really tell his confidence is up, and even the way he's scoring, he's just whipping everything at the net, and it's really starting to fall for him.
Yeah, I think this is another game where Tage Thompson just took over. He might not have been on the score sheet, but he was a big reason why they scored the amount of goals they did. I mean, the amazing play he had to draw the defenders over and find Skinner wide open, who just roofs it. Once again, the whole team floods to him, and he finds a streaking Yoki Haru, but sadly it was offsides, but still, I mean, you did that one, and then Dahlin gets checked from behind into Anderson and the net. Power takes over on the power play, and he finds Tuck sitting wide open in the middle and scores on the power play. That's your 3 goals there. And like I said, Skinner, just another bad angle shot, and he somehow scores it. He scores the weirdest angled shots I've ever seen. But I think and this will be another good transition into the Washington game, Quinn should have had at least 4 goals in this one. He is going to be a 30-goal scorer for his career moving forward. I know this is still his rookie year. He's still got a ways to go in development, but he's just always in the right spot. He's always in a good position. And I think Anderson was just, like you said, a superstar. 16 high-danger chances, and he saved every single one of them. I think this is I know they want to kind of preserve him for the rest of the season, but I think he needs to get in a bit more than they're giving him the chances to. I think he's earned that right. He's in, I think, the top 5 in save percentage now with like a .920 save percentage. I think you need to ride the hot hand, and right now he is the hot hand. I know UPL had a hot hand for a while. I know they still want to get Comrie involved as well. They're in talks to bring in another goaltender as well. Hopefully, if they do, one of these goalies goes out, because you can't have a 4-headed goalie monster. But I think Anderson has earned the right to kind of get more opportunities in the net. I know you want to keep him healthy, you want to keep him fresh, but they're in a playoff race, and you need to ride him, because who knows if he's going to be back next year.
Yeah, I thought Comrie's goal, like his game, was probably the best we've seen him play since his injury. I know the saves he had kind of go along with it, but he didn't let in too many soft opportunities, and even 2 of his saves in that Tampa game directly led to goals off of his, he made the save, rebound went to, I think, once to Skinner, and I forgot who the other one went to, but it was another save, and that ended up it was the Tage Thompson one where they flung it down the ice, and I don't know what that pass was, but Tage ended up scooping it up and scoring. But I thought Comrie looked a little bit better. At the same time, I don't think Comrie's ever going to have the opportunity the rest of the season to really get into form, so he's kind of the odd man out. It's nothing really against Comrie. I think if he was the 1A, like if UPL had not come on and there was equal play time for Anderson and Comrie, I think Comrie would be just playing a little bit better. I just don't think he's given the opportunity, because they don't need to give him the opportunity, because UPL is playing very well, and like you said, Anderson playing very well. UPL, I think, played really well. I guess we'll transition into the Washington game. I thought he played really well in that one, but some of those were simply unsavable, but for the most part, I thought he did a good job. He definitely was struggling a little bit in his last few games. It just didn't look quite like the UPL we had seen that it was on that incredible run. So I have no problem giving Anderson a little bit more play time as well. I mean, he shouldered most of the weight last season, so I think he still has it in him to kind of play as much as he is. But you said you also don't want him to break down in case anything happens. He is a solid 1A, 1B backup right now, especially if this team has playoff aspirations. You want that veteran backup to be there in case anything happens.
Yeah, the only thing left I got for that Florida game, only 5th win of the year so far, scoring fewer than 4 goals. That's insane that this team just puts up the amount of goals they do. It's quite impressive. And then Cousins and Krebs, they will fight anybody. They are not afraid of anybody. They're I don't want to call them wannabe tough guys because they're getting into all the scuffles and everything. They're not fading away from any of the challenges. But my God, if any of the opponents look at their teammates wrong, they're dropping the gloves and throwing haymakers. But we'll move on to the Washington game, like we said, that just happened. This was the Dylan Cousins, I'm not saying coming out party because he's been, a stud all year, but first career hat trick. He was unbelievable in this one. I think he had 9 shots. He had 3 goals, 1 assist in this one. The line just took over, and somebody needed to step up because Alex Tuch is on the IR. He's going to be out week to week. I think it was Granato or Kevin Adams said it's going to be on the longer end of the week to week. And then Darlene was also out because he was nursing something. And I think that Florida game that checked from behind also, progressed it into the needing to sit out territory. But they needed somebody to step up. Dylan Cousins stepped up. Tage Thompson stepped up. And the man that replaced Alex Tuch on the top line, Jack Quinn, he definitely stepped up.
Also, just kind of going back to that Florida game, when Darlene got checked, it was, I know, obviously a very serious play, and now Darlene is out for a little bit, but watching Anderson just hold Darlene's keister with his glove as he just kind of sat on him was very funny as far as just an image goes. They held that shot for a long time because Darlene was obviously down and injured for a little bit, but Anderson just giving him as much love as he could as he's just kind of laying on top of him a little bit injured. But in this Washington game, the other player that I thought really stepped up was Middlestad. I think he's had a really good couple of games now. He's really finding his way with Cousins. I think those two have very good chemistry. I know he had the really bad drop back pass, but I think he made up for it. And more importantly, I think he's just making his presence more known. I think him and Cousins are really starting to come together quite a bit. And like you said, Quinn looking a little bit more out of his mind, and really the whole team in a huge game against Washington, not only for the Sabres, but for Washington themselves, down your number one defensive player and one of your top line forwards, and they were able to step up. And Hinostroza coming out of absolutely nowhere, getting called up, and finds not only a goal that was just one of the prettiest Sabres plays I've seen in a long time. They've had a few this season where it's just incredible passing, where you see this from really top-end teams. We see it all the time where for the longest time the Sabres were scoring kind of scrappy goals, or they'd get 1 or 2 breakaways that they'd be able to bury, but you just didn't often see the really incredible passing that leads to a goal where you just look like the better team. And that goal especially, even the way Hinostroza was able to bury it, going to his backhand and going around the goalie to score that, but even also his pass to Cousins in front of the net for Cousins' hat trick. I mean, Hinostroza getting called up and really just seizing that opportunity. He looked incredible, and he was a player that you look at and you're like, why is this guy not been here the whole time? And I mean, there's not too many players at this point I'd like to kick out, but he definitely made a case for either staying or a really good case to get traded to a different team.
Yeah, and I think it was the last show that I was saying, why isn't Aspley getting some opportunities? I was full on ready to just go on a rant going, why is Hinostroza getting called up and being inserted into this line even before Aspley gets the opportunity? Well, I'm sitting here and not going to say that I was going to say that because it wouldn't have paid off. But yeah, I mean, the Cousins, Hinostroza, Middlestat line was buzzing. I mean, this whole team looked like they were the better team versus Washington. I know it looked... if you're just looking at the box score, you're going, 7-4. They scored 1 late with the Cousins goals to make it 7-4. Washington was kind of making a comeback. But if you watch the actual game, they were just buzzing all around. They were the faster team. They were the more hungry team. They look like they were facing a team that's on their way out. And I think Washington is losers of 6 of 7. I know they broke the streak yesterday or on the Saturday game, but they just... they looked bad in this one. I mean, the Cousins was just flying all around. Jack Quinn being inserted in the top line. He had that beautiful pass in front of the net to Samuelson that he shot it, and it got redeflected and over to Skinner, who just taps it in. He was just all over the ice. He got into a fight because apparently he was too close to their goal, even though he didn't touch him. But I think you hit the nail on the head with Casey Middlestead. Well, everybody had a good game in this one. It was such a good game. Jost and Okposo against the boards. Okposo comes out of it and finds a beautiful pass over to Zemgus Girgensson, who puts it in. Tage Thompson right in the middle of the spot. Nice wrister. There was just too much to actually pinpoint every single thing. But the patience by Jack Quinn right at the blue line, just waiting, and then find Cousins, who's streaking across and finds the back of the net. They got some unlucky breaks where the one pass was against the wall, went right to Ovi. There was a wide open man in front of the net. I think it was Strome that got behind the defense and was wide open. They still got to fix those areas, but being down Alex Tuch, being down Rasmus Dahlin, and facing a team that's in that playoff race, again, you went into this game tied with them in points. I thought this was a huge victory. 3 massive wins right in a row, and that's what we've been saying. Win 3, lose 1, win 2, lose 1. You got to go on those streaks, no more losing streaks, and they definitely, 6 out of 8 points this week, they definitely came through big.
And the biggest, I don't know, there's a lot to take away from these 3 games. All victories,
right.
Obviously, it's very exciting and fun to talk about. But one of the bigger things to come away from these 3 is simply the secondary scoring, or just a different scorer each game really stepping up. I mean, the first game, like you said, Tage game, and even the second game, the Florida game where Skinner had 2, it was also Tage still playing incredible, but Skinner was the goal scorer for 2, Tuch with 1, Tage with 3 in the first one, and then kind of the Zemgus, Girgensson, Lyubushkin out of nowhere. And then this last one, Cousins really stepped up. Tage, Skinner, Zemgus again, and Hinostroza. Just the depth scoring, and not only depth scoring, but the depth scoring looking incredible. I mean, like you said, that third line or fourth line goal with Yost and Girgensons and Okposo. I mean, Yost took out those 2 guys. It was a hard forecheck, and then the play that Okposo made to get it over to Girgensons buried it. It's those kind of lines and those kind of goals that are going to take this team to the next level. And if you make playoffs, those are the ones that are going to mean the most. Those grinder lines finding ways to score. And it looked like in all 3 of those games that a different player was able to step up and really take over the scoring. It wasn't just one guy or just the top line being very heavy weighted. It was a little bit of everybody getting in on the action, and it's really good to see.
And I know there's a bit of recency bias here because the trade deadline is on Saturday, but with Alex Tuch going down for week to week, and they said longer side of the week to week, Quinn did fill in very nicely on the top line. Hinostroza came in and filled very nicely on the second line. You know, depth scoring, like you've been saying, but you also got Rasmus Dahlin out for a bit. I'm wondering if this is going to push Kevyn Adams, and even did say that they're not going to sway away from their plan, but there is a bit more urgency with Alex Tuch going down. I wonder if this is going to mean they're going to go out and get some type of rental player on a cheap deal. It sounds like Timo Meier is heading to New Jersey, so it's not going to be him. That's what they were just putting on Twitter. That's why I scrolled through my phone when you were talking, but it sounds like he's going to New Jersey, so he's probably not going to be making his way in Buffalo. It would have been a big ask because I think they were wanting a first, a prospect, and a now player. So it probably would have been your first Matt Savoy and maybe like a Casey Middlestead or something like that going out the door. And for Timo Meier, who also needs a big contract. So I'm looking more towards a 1-year guy who's on an expiring contract who can be added to this situation, because especially you want the step scoring. If Jack Quinn can keep playing great on the first line, you still need to be able to replace him, because who knows if Hinostroza is going to be able to keep this up. You still need depth defensemen, especially now that Dahlin's going to be nursing something. Who knows when he's going to be coming back, hopefully sooner than later. But it's going to be very interesting to see what these injuries and then what this 7-4 victory over Washington, the team's on a 3-game winning streak, does to Kevyn Adams' mindset on if he's going to be more aggressive or stick to his, just see what pans out here game plan.
Now, with the trade offer that you would have just made, personally, I'll hear, I guess, your side of the story first. Would you have taken that trade if that's what was offered? Like if the Sabres offered Savoy a first and, like you said, like a Middlestead or something like that for Meier, would you have accepted that, or would you have been upset that that's how much they were giving up, knowing where they are as a team?
It's tough because I'm very high on Matthew Savoy. I think he's going to be a very good player.
I don't think I would have liked that trade personally.
The first round pick in Middlestad, whatever.
Right.
I think I would have probably liked it better if they would have been able to get Noah Ostlund in there, just because I think out of the 3 first-round picks last year, I'm less high on him. So if it would have been Ostlund in there, I would have been, okay, great deal, great move. They locked him up for a long-term deal. But because it's Matthew Savoy, I think I would be leaning against it. And remember, I'm all for adding another piece to this, and it's just got to be the right piece. I think they do need another forward to help with the goal scoring. I do think they need more depth defense to be able to make that final push, even though they are playing stinking great right now. But I still think they're 1 or 2 pieces away from being able to compete for the 7th, 8th seed I'm sorry, it shouldn't be 7th, 8th seed anymore because of the stupid playoff system that the NHL has, but the first or second wild card position is the correct terminology for it. But I think there are 1 or 2 pieces like that away. I just don't think I would have been shipping Matthew Savoy out the door.
Agreed. I think Savoy is going to be a huge part of this team's future, yes. And he seems like he's really good at faceoffs as well, which is something this team kind of desperately needs. They don't really have too many guys who are faceoff dominant, and he seems so far, he's in the lower leagues, and he still has a long way of development. I'm not saying he's going to be here next year or the year after, most likely, but at the same time, it sounds like his development's going well, and I think he does have a big spot on this team in the future as a young goal scorer, so I think I would have also been a little upset if he was the piece given away. But we'll see. We'll see if they can get someone a little bit cheaper, but still someone, like you said, who can add something to this team on hopefully offense and defense if they make some moves. But I don't know. I really have no idea where they're going to go with this trade deadline. Obviously, it's approaching extremely quick, but it'll be interesting to see what goes down.
And the next time that we talk Sabres hockey is going to be after the trade deadline. So we'll see if there's a new player we're going to be introducing to everybody. But follow, I guess, because there's so many other Sabres, podcasts, there's so many Sabres journalists, analysts, and all that kind of stuff out there. You don't have to follow us for that kind of stuff. You can follow us for the smaller news breaks, but we'll put it out there. So if you want to follow us on the social media sites, go ahead. But we'll move on to the BSC update. I am up 1923.55 to 1686.22. This encompasses the 3 Sabres games and the 2 Beauts games we're just about to talk about. But in these 3 games, I barely edged you, 35-34.
I will take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, with the Sabres, I'm not doubting that. But are you making any changes? You got Thompson, Skinner, Olofsson, Power, and Yoki. I'm sitting with the very injured team with Tuck, Cousins, Quinn, Dahlin, and Samuelson.
It hurts mentally because I don't want to ruin his progression and everywhere he has gone. But I am going to pick up Middlestat and drop Olofsson, and he's a player that we haven't talked about in a while. But once again, he is back on the disappearing act while Middlestat has really stepped up and kind of proven... I don't know. They really just starting to take that next step, especially with Cousins right next to him. He really played well these last few games. Olofsson has all but disappeared once again, which is pretty depressing. We saw a little bit of glimpse of hope for him, playing a little bit like he did at the end of last season, but now he is gone again.
Yeah, it's a bit of like you said, he had that nice stretch and it just disappeared. But yeah, I'm going to still stay with what I got just because I have a nice lead and I don't want to drop Tuck and then he comes back. They're hoping he's back before the end of the season. I really hope it's quicker than that, but who knows. But we'll go on to the wild card watch here. This is before the Pittsburgh and the New York Islanders game. New York Islanders are currently, when we're recording this, up 2-0. Pittsburgh still has to be playing tonight, so take these results with a grain of salt. New York Islanders are in 7th, 62 games played, 67 points. Buffalo is right behind them, 4 games in hand, 1 point back. 8th place, Buffalo, 58 games played, 66 points. Pittsburgh is tied in the exact same situation here. Well, sorry, 1 point back of that. 9th place, Pittsburgh, 58 games played, 65 points. But again, they still have to play later today when we're recording. Detroit, 10th place, 58 games played, 64 points. Florida, 61 games played, 64 points. And Washington, the falling Washington Capitals, 62 games played, 64 points. So you still got games in hand, but the teams that are right near you with Pittsburgh and Detroit, they also have games in hand over Florida, Washington, and New York. It's going to be a grind the rest of the season, the final, 24 games left. It's exciting to be in the race. I just hope that they add a piece or two to stick with it.
Yeah, it's going to be, this last stretch was massive and a good step, but everything's still right there, and there's a humongous logjam between 7th and 12th. Like you said, games in hand are helpful, but Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Detroit all right up in everybody's biz. So it's going to be a very nerve-wracking, hopefully, I guess. I would say hopefully rather than probably, down to the last few games. Everything's going to be on the line, and hopefully they don't kind of have any of those big losing streaks and fall off and fall back. But the longer they stay in it, the later the season gets, the more exciting it is.
Yeah, and we got 3 massive games that we will be able to talk about on that Monday, the March 6th show. They got Tuesday versus Columbus, Thursday versus Boston, and Saturday versus Tampa Bay. You got to beat Columbus. Try to steal 1 or 2 away from Boston and Tampa, and he'll be sitting pretty. I mean, if you can play that stretch like that and get maybe, 3 or 4 out of 6 points from that series, it'll be very, very welcome. But we'll move on to our final segment here. The Buffalo Beauts, they were in must-win territory, and they started off good. Saturday versus Montreal, they won 3-1. MGM had 2. Schuler had her first career PHF goal. Ridgewell made another start, 32 of 33 saves. Unbelievable. Only allowed 1 goal in 2 games. Really, really good. Shots were 33-27 in favor of the Force. And then Sunday, the wheels came off in the third period. They lost 6-2. MGM and Dove made the goals. Ridgewell, I just want to keep saying Ridgeway. She's got to change her last name to Ridgeway. Made 33 of 39 saves. Shots were 39-28 in favor of the Force. And with this, and Connecticut Whale are currently mopping the floor with the Metro. That will end the Buffalo Beauts playoff chances. So when you hear us talk on Friday that they're playoff chances and they still need to win, just ignore that because we recorded that on Friday.
Yeah, the first game, Ridgewell, just incredible. I mean, for those first 3 games that she played, just absolutely incredible. Just what she was able to do. She played really, really well, kept the team in it that whole time. And once again, we saw the shots, 33-27, looking fantastic. And always like to be in favor, but in general, they were close and they were low for the Force. That is one of the bigger things about keeping that score down, is keeping the shots down. Obviously, they go hand in hand for a reason. Not always. Sometimes it's not a lot of shots and a lot of goals because things happen, but for the most part, it seems to kind of go together. A low-scoring win, but like you said, it kept their hopes alive. It was really exciting to get another win. Was at 3 in a row, something we haven't seen all season. Very exciting. They were getting a lot of points. They were really putting things together. And then, like you said, it kind of fell off. But that first Montreal game on Saturday gave them a lot of hope for that next game.
Yeah, I mean, the Force scored first, but it was disallowed because of a high stick. MGM tips the puck away on the penalty kill and scores shorthanded. It was a heck of a deke by her. She went backhanded on the left-hand side. Nichols put a shot on net. Big rebound for Schuler. Just a minute 09 apart from those 2 goals. And then MGM, once again, Dobson, great pass breakup and tipped it up to MGM, who hit the wrister shot. Just a beautiful game by MGM. Second and third period, the Force kind of dominated possession besides the second half of the second period by the Beauts. They came back, but the second period just unraveled for the Beauts. They had a 5-on-3 opportunity they couldn't score. Force had 4 power play opportunities. The Beauts were great on the penalty kill. And then, like we said, Ridgewell, unbelievable in net. But it's one of those opportunities and times where the Beauts were just, self-inflicted wounds by not being able to stay out of the penalty box. And that continued into the Sunday game where the second period, once again, they just couldn't stay out of the box. And they were getting opportunities to get down the ice and have, 2-on-1 rushes and 3-on-2 rushes, but they just weren't capitalizing on that. But when you're in the penalty box so much and you're having to kill off so many power plays, which, I mean, they were doing such a good job of it, 5 of the 6 periods. It just came unraveled in the third period in this game. But it was just, that is the one area of their game where they're still doing, that they haven't fully improved on, is self-inflicted wounds of getting into the penalty box. And this was a bit of a letdown because I saw it. They went up 2-1 in this game. I was like, oh my God, they're going to be able to still do this. And then it just came unraveled with the Force scoring 4 straight.
Yeah, in the second period alone, they had 4 straight penalties, and we talk about it with the Bandits all the time. Luckily, the Bandits have been doing a pretty good job recently of being a little bit better, but it's just one of those things that even if you're killing off those penalties, it's more opportunities that your offense doesn't have to score, and that's really the bigger aspect of it. And I mean, even if you're killing those penalties off, was it 8 minutes in just one period alone, all back to back to back to back, that your team doesn't have the opportunity to really score unless you're scoring shorthanded, which they had another pretty solid shorthanded opportunity. But those are rare and hard to come by. And at the same time, it just doesn't allow your offense to really get in a rhythm and stay in the game when you have that many penalties in a row. And that really took them out of the game, even though the game was very close at that point. Headed into the third, it was 3-2, and you still thought, playoff hopes on the line. This is their opportunity to kind of regather themselves in the locker room, come out in the third, and just put it away, try to find a way to score, at least tie it, get it to overtime, and put it away. But like you said, the wheels fell off, and a lot of that comes from the ability just to not kind of have things go your way in the second period and not really get any of the momentum, and really just kind of fell off from there.
Yeah, I got to correct myself. It was 5 straight goals by the Force. But yeah, like you said, the second period, the shots were 15-7 in favor of the Force. That kind of explains that you were on the defense quite a lot. But even going into the third period, you still stood a chance. You stood on your head. Ridgewell was playing very well. And I mean, it was 29-20 in shots going into the third period. You just had to adjust that. But with the Force scoring a minute 16 in the third period, you kind of felt, all right, the wind's out of their sails. It's probably done here. But I mean, it was still an exciting first period. Maud hit MGM in stride. First shot was blocked, gathers it, another rebound, another backhanded, exactly like the first goal she scored in the first game. And then Dove hit a knuckler that just somehow eluded the goaltender and put it in. Loose puck in front of Ridgewell, tied it up. Montreal once again got behind the defense. This one was about the defense breakdown where they were just getting a bit too high in the neutral zone, and a Montreal player was sneaking behind them and scoring. It's just, like you said, the wheels kind of just fell off in the third period, but I think a lot of that was due to what was going on in the second period.
Yeah, and in the second period, they even had a few really great odd man opportunities, and they just weren't able to bury them. And it's those situations where if you head into the third 3-3, it's a completely different game. You come out maybe a little bit stronger, but when you can't bury those really solid opportunities, I think they had a 2-on-1 and then another 3-on-2, and they were very close. It's not like they botched the plays completely. They were almost goals on both of them. It was just really good defense by the Force and just could not find a way to put those in. I mean, this is what happens when you have that rough of a start of a season. You kind of back yourself into a corner where you're in a must-win situation where they haven't even strung 3 wins together all season, let alone 4. So it makes these games stand out that much more because it was literally the game that knocked you out of playoffs. But obviously everything that happened earlier in the season was truly the reason. But I mean, 3 straight wins headed into this last game. Yes, it kind of didn't go their way on Sunday, but they still have a lot to look forward to next season and continue to grow. And like you said, at this point, you're just playing spoiler. You're just trying to roll everything you can, just continue to have this team grow together. Hopefully a lot of them are back next season and they can just really start that season on the right foot.
Yeah, and Connecticut is currently destroying the Metro 6-2. So if they finish that off, they will clinch the final seed. So there is no way for any of the 3 teams in Montreal, the Metro, and Buffalo to sneak into the playoffs. So the top 4 are locked in with Boston, Toronto, Minnesota, and Connecticut. But you face Connecticut next week if you want to play spoilers, so they are stuck facing the number 1 seed. You take them down. You're just playing for pride at this point, trying to catch the Metro and Montreal. Montreal is currently 5 points ahead of you. Metro is 19 points, or 2 points ahead of you at 19 points. You can catch both those teams and pass both those teams and finish 5th place. And if you want to finish on a nice run, you've won 3 of the last 4. You got 4 games left. If you can, sneak another 3 wins out of that, finishing 6-2 down the stretch is a huge, huge milestone that they can make and move forward onto next season. But BSC update, I am up 12, or I scored 12.5. You scored 3.5, and I finally passed you in the BSC Beauts by 2.5. I was very happy about that.
Yeah, hopefully my team can come together and I beat you at least in this for the first season. Be something exciting for me because as far as the overall goes, it doesn't look too good for my team again this year.
No, but we got 4 games left for the Beauts. You got a chance to pass me. So no milestones happened to this one. This one did probably hurt for you. Thank you, MGM. 3 goals. But on our next show, like we said, on the Friday that we already recorded, the Buffalo Beauts are facing the Connecticut Whale. Not the Whales, the Whale. we're going to raise some money so they can add an S to that. But like I said, no milestones in this one. We'll move forward to our final segment here. MVP of the week. There were a few options. Tage Thompson probably deserved one with his 4 goals. Dylan Cousins probably deserved it with his hat trick on Sunday. But I think we're going to give it to back-to-back weeks for Buffalo Beauts player Michaela Grant-Mentis, MGM. 3 goals this weekend, 10 shots, 1 block shot. She had 2 goals last weekend. She probably could have deserved the MVP award last weekend as well, but we're going to give it to her this weekend. 5 goals in the last, 4 games. Really good. She's coming on strong when she needed it most. She stepped up in the biggest spotlight when they had to win. She was coming up big, and I think she definitely deserves the BSC MVP for this week.
And it's just a continuing theme with this team that it's taken them a little bit longer, I think, than they were hoping to gel and really come together with all these new faces on this team. But you can really see MGM, another new face on this team, coming together at the end of this season, really starting to put together the season like she had with Toronto last year, where she was one of their top goal scorers and one of the best in the entire league. She's really starting to put that together with her line mates, with her teammates now at the end of the season. And again, it's never too little too late for that kind of improvement, because that's something that can roll into next year. So really good to see her coming on strong at the end of the season.
Yeah, and like we said, these players are playing for jobs in their careers as well. But, I mean, 1 bad period of 12 the last 2 weekends, I think is pretty dang good. And I think MGM was the leader of it. And she's just really, really good at hockey, Phil.
She really is.
But Phil, I think that's pretty much all we got on this show. Where did the team go? 4-1. It's a pretty successful weekend for these Buffalo sports teams. Is there anything else you want to add to this before I shut it down for a full week of no more podcasting? And we'll talk again next Monday.
Enjoy Florida, and
thank you.
You enjoy that Harry Potter world.
Oh, that's the plan. We're going to travel to both worlds? Is that what you would call it? Both Universal Parks?
According to Dwight, it's supposed to be fantastic.
It works for me. So, like we said, the next show that's going to be airing on Friday is the Bandits and Beauts preview, which we already recorded that. And then on the Monday show, because you won't hear that, we got Sabres games. We got the review for the Bandits and the review for the Beauts. So, and trade deadline talk. So that's on Saturday. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.